So today we're going to be talking about probably one of the most hotly debated topics in the teaching and learning of Arabic, and that is multilingualism. How are we using Fusha and Amiya, or the standard Arabic and the dialects, in the classroom?
So dialects are looked down on, and I think though the relationship is a bit more complex as well, because even the mixing of Fusha and Amiya, as Christeen talked about, uh, it's everywhere. It's in media, it's in the household. Somebody might quote from something formal. Some households are much more formal. I have educated Arab friends, for instance, from Syria or Jordan. Um, I almost feel like they're talking Fusha to me sometimes, but they don't. That's just how they talk. That's just their way of speaking. They have a more formal way of speaking.
Yeah.
And there are, in the reverse of that, there are phrases in Amiya, for instance, that mock people that talk like that. بيتكلم بالقاف. He pronounces the qaf.
With
something.
the qaf.
Yeah. Instead of saying the for instance. But all of that really has had a large impact on education, with dialects not being acknowledged and students being sort of thrown into a Fusha environment at a very young age, when, honestly, they haven't even learned the letters and basic phonics.
So I feel like educators, we need to more understanding that dialects and MSA are so beautiful on its own, and they are complementary to each other rather than they act as
Like
opposing
fighting each
forces.
other.
Right. So as a teacher, I cannot be stressed on my student to be speaking MSA like strictly all the time, but I also should not be too lenient to rely on dialect. So how to get that mix between, or like blending between dialect and MSA, till at one point, maybe towards the end of the school year, they are like more proficient in all modalities, and they are feeling a lot more comfortable on using MSA in a classroom. Also, I think that code switching with purpose, like understand when and how we are switching to using MSA, or I'm using dialect, like maybe at the beginning of the topic, I'm engaging the student, I'm creating that welcoming environment to hear their dialect, but then we transition, again, guide them through MSA.
Marhaba, and welcome to this episode of the All Things Arabic podcast. It's great to have you all here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank
Sharafna.
you.
Sharafna كتير. So today we're going to be talking about probably one of the most hotly debated topics in the teaching and learning of Arabic, and that is multilingualism. How are we using Fusha and Amiya, or the standard Arabic and the dialects, in the classroom? I would love to just start off with getting to know a little bit more about you all as our guests. Hossam, let's go ahead and start with you. Can you tell us where you're from? Are you a teacher of Arabic, or where do you work in the teaching and learning of Arabic? And what brings you here today?
Yeah, so I actually have a day job as a grant writer at a university, but my secret identity is I'm the guy behind the Living Arabic Project, which is a website, livingarabic.com, where I create and upload dialect dictionaries as well as Fusha, and have a search feature where you can look through them all at the same time.
Okay, that's wonderful. We'll definitely ask you a lot more about the Living Arabic Project. Did you study Arabic in college? Did you grow up speaking it? How did you come to work so much on this passion project of yours, the Living Arabic Project?
So my family moved to Michigan when I was young, and my father's from Lebanon. I went to a private school up till high school, and I hated Arabic, and I hated studying Arabic, and the only thing I remembered was what I learned in the house and speaking to my grandparents and so forth. A lot of kids' songs and stuff really stuck with me. I swore I would never have anything to do with Arabic again. And then after undergrad, I did Peace Corps, and I went to South Africa, and I loved learning the local language. It was just cool. It was fun. There was a town called Tamahanti, which means stay here. There was a school called Vabanana. The children are beating each other. It was awesome. So the language was a lot of fun. And then after I came back, I wanted to work in development work, but I wanted to go focus on the Middle East some. And so I was like, well, I should brush up on my Arabic because I have not used it at all in years. And so for graduate school, one of my master's degrees was in Middle East Studies, and I focused on Arabic.
That's amazing. I think you also went to University of Michigan too.
I did.
Yeah.
Both my master's degrees at University of Michigan, and then I did CASA. I was supposed to go to Syria, but I ended up in Egypt because that was the year the revolution started.
Okay.
And the word lists that I kept in college, which were complete, honestly, like cheat sheets for like writing and stuff, because I could just look up anything I wanted. Those became the basis for the Living Arabic Project website.
Wow, that's really cool. So a plug for any of my students listening out there, those word lists are really important to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Christeen? When did you start teaching Arabic? And can you tell us a little bit about the school that you teach at?
Sure. So I work at PSI's 30 in Brooklyn, New York, Bay Ridge area. I've been teaching at the school for 7 years now. Our school, it's K-8. We started about 10 years ago. We started as a kindergarten DL immersion program, and then we moved to a first, second, third, and fourth. Now we have up to 7th grade, and hopefully by next year we are opening 8th grade class.
Inshallah.
So yeah, inshallah. So yeah, it has been very exciting to be an Arabic dual language teacher. Like I said, I've been doing it for 7 years now. I teach math and Arabic language arts in Arabic, of course, and science. We do it in English.
Yeah, that's wonderful. How did you get into teaching Arabic? Were you a teacher before? I know you said you started working there about 7 years ago.
So I think since I was young, I really wanted to become a teacher, and I was also in a teaching prep program back in Egypt. I came in when I was 19, almost turning 20, and I love teaching as a career in general. So when I came in here, I went to CSI College in Staten Island in New York. And I was trying to complete the program, get my master's degree. I was debating between early childhood or elementary. I do love the little ones, the pre-K and kindergarten, but I also do like that mid-age, 9 and 10. They're very independent. They are more responsible and accountable of the work. Not saying that the little one are not, but I think for every age group it comes with the pros and cons. For this, so yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. So you all know we're here today to talk about, as we've mentioned, the biggest debate in the teaching and learning Arabic world.
Right.
However, we're going to have this conversation a little bit differently. We're not talking about to teach Amiya and Fusha together or to not teach Amiya and Fusha together. We're going to be talking about how to do that well, how to do it reasonably, how to do it effectively, how to do it in a way that really engages and celebrates all of our learners. So yeah, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts, maybe starting off on this big question of how do you think we can work to integrate dialects and modern standard Arabic into the same class? Hossam, I know you're not in the classroom, but I also know that you maybe have a lot of thoughts on it from reading some of your blog posts before you came in today. Let's start with you.
Spying on me before starting
Oh yeah,
this.
definitely.
Yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts. I mean, obviously from my own childhood, like I mentioned, I didn't like Arabic because of how it was taught. I absolutely hated the language and wanted nothing to do with it. So really the inspiration for this, the dialect work that I do and the dictionaries and things like that really was education. How do I actually teach this language and trying to understand it? My son was another level of inspiration in that regard, because now I'm like, oh, I have to deal with the problems that I had growing up, and I want to see if I can do it right. So my son is great. He speaks Arabic fluently. He's amazing at languages. He also speaks Urdu. But there's still a lot of challenges with it. So lately I've been getting a bit more into the space too. I've been trying to create learning tools. I am still doing the dialect documentation and things like that. These days I'm working on Sudanese, but I have a lot of data, and I've been trying to explore approaches to making games with the data, as well as more in the academic side, starting to look at, well, what should the approach be? So I was really happy to hear your question. I think sometimes we hear still, is it to be or not to be? but I think that really is just holding us up. We know from a
Mm.
lot of studies now how much the exclusive focus just on Fusha, and with that, a lot of times a disregard for dialects, it really hurts children's education.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so you mentioned that growing up, you really didn't like how you learned Arabic or how you were being taught Arabic. Can you explain a little bit more? What was that classroom like?
It
We're
was
not going to name any teacher names here, but
it was miserable.
oh,
I mean, it was just very grammatically focused. And I remember talking to a friend recently. She's Sudanese. She was talking about her daughter, who went as an adult and wanted. I mean, she spoke some Ammiya. She's Sudanese Egyptian, and she spoke some. Her daughter speaks some Ammiya, but not a lot. And she wanted to go and actually learn Arabic properly. So she did an intensive summer course. And her daughter always says the only thing I learned was Ammi ضابط في الجيش.
oh no, my uncle is an army officer.
And honestly, that's really kind of what I remember it, except it is from all those lessons, ذهب أحمد إلى المدرسة.
Ahmed went to the school.
Yeah, so 8 years of primary school education, that's all I came away with from that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you wanted something different for future learners of Arabic. And remind me, how old is your son?
He's 9 now.
Okay. All right. That's beautiful that he's been an inspiration. Christine, I know you also have kids too. And I
Yes.
have like 60 kids at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, who I'll talk about later on. But
Yes.
yeah, I've observed your classroom and it looks like without thought, it when I observe it from the outside, you so seamlessly transition between, focusing on that modern
Mhm.
standard Arabic and then also incorporating the dialect in a really intentional way.
Mhm.
Was that a conscious choice for you? Was that a decision you all made as a school together, as teachers? How did that happen?
Yeah. So our school is in Bay Ridge, which has a very large Arabic speaking community, and our students, as a result, they come from Arabic speaking backgrounds. Their parents, whether they were born or raised in Arabic speaking countries, however, the students themselves are considered heritage language learners. They most of them, I would say, they were born in the US, but they may have a limited profession in Arabic. So yeah, with that being said, I have two classes of deal with language that I'm teaching. One, it has 27 students. On the other one, about 20. Students that I'm teaching are coming from, like I said, different backgrounds, Arabic speaking backgrounds. And it's so wonderful to hear so many different dialects and just, notice the difference and similarities between each one of those dialects. So when I'm introducing a new topic, I try to kind of like, okay, let's take a look at how this word is said in Fusha. And I will, do a word map with my students. So I would have the Fusha in a big circle on a whiteboard, and then we draw all the synonyms of this word, how we say it in Yemen, how we say it in Lebanon, in Egyptian. So one word that crossed my mind, I did it recently with them. We're learning about seasons, and we are up to the winter season and what they wear during that season. So we got to hats that we did last week, and it was so cool that it's said in so many different ways. Like we say, of course, head, قبعة, and fusha, but then in Egyptian we say bornita. In Lebanon they like ta'aya. In Algeria they like kaskita.
From
They have
casquettes. Oh,
yes.
interesting. Okay.
In Yemen they have kufi. So they like have a different, like there are so many different dialects for just the one word. So it's great to give the students that welcoming environment and encouraging them to bring their own home dialects and get them engaged, but then we guide them smoothly to MSA.
Right.
Like, this is how the word it's going to be said. Let's practice it together. Let's, write it in sentence. Speaking about the part of how to integrate MSA into the curricula. So I feel like educators, we need to more understanding that dialects and MSA are so beautiful on its own. And they are complementary to each other rather than they act as
Like
opposing
fighting each
forces.
other. Right, right.
Right. So, as a teacher, I cannot be stressed on my student to be speaking MSA like strictly all the time, but I also should not be too lenient to rely on dialect. So, how to get that mix between or like blending between dialect and MSA till at one point, maybe towards the end of the school year, they are like more proficient in all modalities and they are feeling a lot more comfortable on using MSA in a classroom. Also, I think that code switching with purpose, like understand when and how we are switching to using MSA or I'm using dialect, like maybe at the beginning of the topic, I'm engaging the student, I'm creating that welcoming environment to hear their dialect, but then we transition again, guide them through MSA.
You enter into like a lesson or more
Right.
academic content.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, there are so many different ways. I think also create authentic different resources that I could use in a classroom with my students that has a nice blend between MSA and dialects, like maybe a songs, a video, even a videotape of a native speaker who is, speaks fluently and mix between MSA and dialect. That would be a beautiful, like a showcase for the students of how, they could do that
Yeah.
more in the future and practicing doing it in classroom. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think well, you all know some about my background, but I guess similar to Hossam and also dissimilar a little bit, but I was only trained in my background in Arabic and Fusha. Like, and at that point in time, everything was very separate,
Yeah.
and almost, I wouldn't say that there was this like competitive spirit, but our Fusha classes were very much held up as like, these are the classes you take to get your major. And then we would have Amiye classes or Amiye club that were 1 credit that didn't really count for anything or were just like for fun. So even there was this like different weight and different distinction being put on both of them. And then I remember showing up to the University of Michigan for my first day of grad school for teaching Arabic as a second language. And my advisor said, well, we use both in the classroom. You speak dialect, right? And I was like, kind of, but really not, not really. And having to work really hard alongside of my undergraduate students to really self-study and sit down with friends and my advisor and practice my Egyptian dialect at the time. And I don't know, I think about the ease of which you're talking about. This is how they can be integrated. And it makes so much sense when we think about how Arabic actually is in the Arabic speaking world. So I wonder, and maybe you all have the answer to this question or not, do you all have a sense of why historically they've been so separated? Like, what this Fusha is here and Hamiya is down here, kind of differentiation is?
So as I grew up in Egypt, I would say I graduated, not graduated, but
yeah,
say
you
I
studied that.
graduated. It's
Yeah.
kind of like So I went to Notre Dame school in Egypt, and we were learning mostly in French and English. But during the Arabic class, it was done absolutely in Fusha. So, but whether I was using the Fusha when I was interacting with my friends outside the school or not, I think that's the question. We were mostly speaking like more Ammiya, like more that dialect, the Egyptian dialect. We're not really using the Fusha much, but we know once we enter in the classroom, we need to turn 100%
time.
to like,
Yeah.
exactly, like it's a Fusha time. And I think it's great to understand
like when and where to use.
and also
code
to
switch?
have the communicative purpose for each, for dialect and also for MSA. So we notice that MSA, it's more for like a formal academic context, and then when it comes to El Fusha, it's having conversation. And I turn it to my classroom. I see I'm using MSA mostly when I have one-to-one conversation with my student, when I'm trying to use their home dialect to get to, their level and be able to understand what is the misconception and get them back to closing the gaps and make sure they are understood the topic before I got them to MSA. So yeah, it's mostly like a classroom discussion, one-to-one conversation, interaction between their peers. I'm trying to keep MSA more for like this.
Yeah, the dialect for that kind of
Yes.
relationship building
Right.
and classroom environment
Right.
connection.
But eventually we're trying to push them to MSA and how to become proficient, all modalities in MSA. So
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. Hossam, what are your thoughts or maybe personal experiences? Also, I know you've done so much research into the collecting and the preserving of dialects, so I'm sure you've come up against some opinions that people have.
Opinions, if you clarify the question, sorry, in which regard exactly? Because there's a lot of ways I could take this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like what I observed as a student coming through the program was that not only was there always a separation, but that separation was very intentional. And Fusha was held in the highest regard, and Amiya, it wasn't just secondary, it was looked down a little bit upon. If I was to speak Amiya in a Fusha class, I might be told that's wrong, or you need to redo it so it sounds better, or it sounds correct. So that always stuck with me, and I never knew why.
So I don't think there's necessarily 100% clear answer on why, or if there is, it's a very large, complex answer, frankly. I mean, Fusha itself is tied in with civilization building, both ancient in the Arab countries, but also more recent as well. When you see the nationalist movements and stuff like that, people really thought Fusha would just, the way there were a lot of dialects of Italian, for instance, spoken, and now there's really just one main form of Italian. Obviously, there's still variation in region, but not at the level that it used to be. And people thought Fusha would take the same route. I think there's a lot of reasons that it didn't historically, but it has taken on that prestige for, like I said, pan-Arab reasons, nationalistic reasons, religious reasons, and things like that. The level that dialects have been disregarded, though, has really, it's kind of amazing. Like, it's even hard to find dictionaries for some of the dialects, or readable dictionaries, if you will. I have a Sudanese dictionary in Arabic that I've been going through, but some of the definitions are like, shutur, shajara bi'ayna, a kind of tree or a specific tree. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? That doesn't help me at all.
Yeah.
Without the internet, I wouldn't even be able to figure out a lot of these things, or without informants. So dialects are looked down on. And I think, though, the relationship is a bit more complex as well, because even the mixing of Fusha and Ammiya, as Christeen talked about, it's everywhere. It's in media, it's in the household. Somebody might quote from something formal. Some households are much more formal. I have educated Arab friends, for instance, from Syria or Jordan. I almost feel like they're talking Fusha to me sometimes, but they don't. That's just how they talk. That's just their way of speaking. They have a more formal way of speaking.
Yeah.
And there are, in the reverse of that, there are phrases in Amiya, for instance, that mock people that talk like that. Bitkallem bil qaf, he pronounces the qaf.
With
something,
the qaf. Yeah.
Instead of saying the for instance. But all of that really has had a large impact on education, with dialects not being acknowledged and students being sort of thrown into a Fusha environment at a very young age, when, honestly, they haven't even learned the letters and basic phonics.
What do you all think that impact is on the students? And maybe I can share just a little bit first about what some of my students have, shared with me, learning from the integrated curriculum, which even, I would say different integrative curricula, they're having to make a decision about which dialects to include. And so at the beginning of the semester, I always ask my students, and they're in first year Arabic, they may have a background or a connection, or they may have only read something on Wikipedia. This is not a promotion for Wikipedia, but, I ask them, I say, okay, why do you think our book focuses on like Egyptian and Shami dialect, but like really like Syrian dialect.
Mhm.
And they kind of think about it, and some might have an idea, and I give them a little hint. I'm like, okay, well, historically in civilization, like where was their money? Where was their trade? Where was their culture, education, books, radio, television? And inevitably someone remembers, oh, okay, well, you know, Egypt had some of the first broadcasting and, you know, music production and film production, and Syria was this incredible trade route, you know, so it was able to like publish books and carry the language. So they end up figuring it out. But what some of my students have said is that like I welcome all dialects in the classroom. We have a lot of Sudanese, Yemeni, a beautiful large Iraqi population in the Triangle area. And sometimes they feel like, you know, oh, I should be using mnih or koyes, like I should be using the Levantine or the Masri word.
Right.
And I say to them, like, please, like
don't
use
have to.
Zain, like
Yes.
use whatever feels natural to
Right.
you, because that's going to amplify what all the other students feel in class. And they've told me, I've almost never been in a class where my teacher tells me it's okay to use my dialect. And when the teacher has said to them, yes, please use your dialect, teach the class that, share with it,
Right.
they feel so seen. And they just feel, you know, they're like, I feel so much more comfortable immediately. I feel like I can just open up my mouth and express myself. And I will get feedback from you, but it's feedback that will help guide me, as you say, to
Absolutely.
understanding
Yes.
what's the role for dialect, what's the word for Fusha.
Yeah.
So I know you teach younger learners.
Yeah.
What have you seen the impact on
No,
them
I
be?
would say the students definitely feel comfortable when they are having that mix. Like if I'm speaking about content-based approach, whether I'm doing speaking about math, it has like a very awesome natural mix or blend of both dialect and MSA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because at the
Oh, cool.
beginning of the topic, I could introduce the vocab in MSA. We practiced those vocab throughout the whole unit. But and they also do see it in a math word problem when I have it on a screen. We all unpack the problem together, pull some information which is done in MSA. Knowing they read off, you know, what it's written on a screen, so it's an MSA. But that conversation happened in a classroom, like, okay, what am I looking for? What information? What operation am I gonna do first? It's mostly done in the student's homeland dialect, and it makes them feel very comfortable. The same goes on when they go in groups and they work with their peers. They have the worksheet problem written in
MSA.
MSA,
Oh, cool.
right? So they are practice reading the problem in MSA, but the conversation happening amongst them, it's in dialect. But the product, I always feel like let's guide them through MSA. The product at the end, it needed to be more than MSA. So I make sure that I provide them with sentence frames, vocab that they need, so that they be able to, okay, here is my answer to the problem, and here's my explanation or my reasoning why. And they'll be able to present. They would have the, okay, I'm confident about my answer, and I'm also confident about presenting this in the front of my class and my peers. So I think it's also part of making sure you are provide them with all they need to meet that level. They not feel the stress that now I have to move from dialect to MSA on my own. Like they need to definitely have a lot of support. And yeah, and I think like to how to close the gaps by allowing them to have the dialect. So also the word problem that I create for my students, what we have in a curriculum, but I'm going to fight for my students. I try to have it more culture relevant to my kids,
Okay.
so that
Yeah.
they do see, oh, math actually exists, whether in formal or informal context.
Yeah.
I could speak about a problem that has, you know, I went to the supermarket and I got shawarma sandwich. I'm like, oh, I know shawarma. And now we're going to speak about fraction and how I split that sandwich, or how did I share it with my family, you know,
Yeah.
with my friends. So they are getting too excited
Yeah.
and they can make that connection to what is going
Yeah.
on. Right. So the lesson, like I try my best to use the four modalities, and it's between reading and writing, 100% MSA, speaking and listening, it will be more like a dialect, and also move towards MSA by the end of the lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I speak about like Arabic language arts, We also, the vocab, 100% at MSA. But it's so funny how when I ask my student, okay, now you're going to go back to your seat and you're going to try to write about what was your favorite season and why. And I noticed that their dialects starts kind of like show up in their spelling and the writing prompts. And I'm like, okay, how about we do like a proofreading? And I hire the one who's like very proficient in writing Arabic and MSA to proofread and partner them up together with my students. So they sit down together with their peers, go over and try to think, okay, could I rephrase this sentence? Could I use this word in MSA instead of this? Could I, they try to go over the writing with their peers so that they be able to produce 100% MSA.
Right.
Yeah, at the end of the
Yeah, I feel
lesson.
like students having multiple opportunities
Yeah.
to work on a product and refine that product.
Yes.
I feel like that's what's been the most critical for my students.
Right.
Most of them are in their first or second year of college, and
Right.
You go to college and you're feeling pretty confident. Like, I know who I am. I have my
Yeah.
opinions. I'm in charge of my
Yes.
schedule. I know when I see my friends, when I do my homework, all these things. And then you show up to a beginner's level Arabic class and you're saying like, bahib khubz. Like, I love some bread,
Yeah.
And so sometimes, especially my students, and we have a really beautiful blend of, we have some different heritage learners, and then we have a lot of students who don't have any connection or ties to the Arabic speaking world. And they kind of work alongside with one another, but sometimes I do see my heritage learners want to kind of lean in a little bit more into, okay, I do know how to
Yeah.
express this way. And I'm like, you do, and that's amazing. And for this context, how can we begin to refine this a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes coming down too hard, it stops them from even, there's
Yes.
humiliation, there's shame, there's embarrassment. And I
Yes.
can't tell you how many times, like, because I only learned Fusha,
Yeah.
I used to only speak Fusha, which is very cool, by the way. We're not saying only
Yes.
speaking Fusha is
Right.
uncool. It's super
Right.
cool, guys.
Yeah.
And I used to get like picked on, in a very loving way. When I first moved to Lebanon, I remember, some new friend asked me like, how I was doing. And I was like, Jaya Jiddan. And he was like, okay,
Yes.
Caroline, first of all, get rid of all of your hells,
Yeah.
like on the beginning of your sentence. Second of all, you don't need to say yeah all the time. Yeah, like Hossam, I'm speaking to Hossam.
Or yeah, ayyuha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was like, third of all, rawa, like just be cool, just be chill, And so, yeah, I feel like there is an impact. I'm curious, Hossam, you've mentioned your son he's fluent, right? And 9, am I remembering that correctly? What's his awareness level of what he's doing when he's speaking, of shifting from Fusha to Amiyya? And do you think that awareness level has to be there?
So I have a different approach than that. I capitalize on the overlap as much as possible. And that kind of requires sometimes a fine-tuned understanding of some of the phonology and things like that. But like we do math, we do it entirely in Arabic. When he does a science homework, obviously science homework is in English, but we talk about it in Arabic. He's good at he reads it, and then he'll explain it to me in Arabic. Obviously, formal terms come into this, right? Multiplication, darab, it's not going to change.
Yes.
So, and we in that sense, he does pick it up. And then for Arabic classes themselves, there is that rigidity in his classes that is really a big turnoff. Like I remember when he came home one day and he had the word for watermelon. And I just casually looked at it. I was reading through his list of words.
Wait, like batikh, right?
Batikh, right?
Okay, I'm like, is there another word for... Oh.
He's like, it's bitikh.
Ah.
Because his teacher corrected him. And these are little things that, the teachers will, it makes it hard on the students. Like you said, it can be humiliating. It can be It can make them very unsure of themselves because, yeah, it is usfur in Fusha. Someone, Sibawayhi or whatever, decided that the wazn there is fu'u, with a dhamma on the first letter.
Wow. If my students are listening to this episode right now, they literally just studied that
Did
last
they just
week.
study that? All right,
Yes.
see? And yes, if you look at, Lisan al-Arab, this whole dictionary, it is bittikh and not battikh.
I had no idea.
Me too.
I've always said
Me too.
The funny thing is, like,
I said
Egyptians
battikh,
make
yes.
fun of the Sudanese, sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, in Sudan, عندهم البطيخ, and they'll like gesture, it's like this big. But like, I teach my son, okay, yeah, some people will say it like this, some people will say it like that, and he does have a pretty good, obviously we're here in the US, I have friends from various Arab countries. He goes to a school where he studies Arabic, he has Arabic classes. He has an idea of what dialects are and that they'll vary, and he laughs at them. Even when he was very little, he'd come home and for some reason he just wanted to put tanween on everything. He's like, badditon khubzaton, or something ridiculous like that. It was just complete nonsense, but it was funny to him, and so I'm like, yeah, we'll go with it. Now I try to break down Fusha grammar into and in general, like Arabic grammar written large, into very simplistic ideas that he can comprehend. Tanween is indefinite. Okay, that's what it means. Yeah, it changes, but if you have that n sound at the end, it just means indefinite. We're not going to stress about like theories of indefiniteness, levels, is an adverb indefinite or something like that. It's
I was
just
like, what about adverbs?
Yeah. We're just going to go with it for now, right? We'll talk about on nouns, u or un, it's doing it. And I don't, it's the fa'al, right? Although I'll sometimes say it's the amil, because we don't really say fa'al. And I'll use both, so he gets to hear the other one, but he gets the idea. And these basic ideas, then he can then recreate them. He can put the i'rab on a sentence in Fusha if he needs to.
Nice.
Sometimes I'll teach him tricks to simplify it. Ahmad, I realize now why they use it in so many kids' textbooks is because, mamnu' min as-sarf, that wasn't, right? It's so easy, right? You're never going to hear Ahmadan. Because
wow, you're pulling out the really deep grammar concepts here.
Yes, you are.
Can I interject and just ask you to maybe talk a little bit more about the overlap? Because you talked about that, and whenever I notice an overlap, I'll mention it to my students. But now I'm thinking as a teacher, okay, how can we as teachers tap into the Living Arabic Project and how that's documenting and showing overlap between different dialects as well as distinctions? But I'm just curious to know more about the overlap.
Okay, so quick, in terms of using the website, if you search, you can obviously search through multiple dictionaries at once. And if you search for a word like now, for instance, you can see different variations in dialects.
Okay.
And you can check and see if it's the same in any of the dialects or if it's different. Trying though so let me take a step back. My brother and I presented a study. He helped me a lot with the computational stuff almost a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago, at a conference. And basically we talked about using all the data in the Living Arabic Project. What kind of overlap do we really see? And how do we calculate that? Not just measuring for, say, lexical distance between Fusha and dialect, which a lot of studies in academia try to do,
right,
for different languages, not necessarily for Arabic, but to actually ask, how can we check all these words together and figure them out? But one of the things we found was that if you eliminate all the harakat except the shadda, so you're not worried about asfur and asfur.
So you're taking away all the short vowels.
All the short vowels.
Okay.
And if you standardize all the consonants, so qaf is a qaf no matter how it's said.
Okay.
Other bigger changes, we'll talk about those in a sec, but if you do that, you, depending on, of course, the dialect a bit, but more importantly, the context, I would say, and the level of communication, you're probably looking at a 50% overlap between Fusha and any one dialect.
That's a lot. It's a lot, considering that Fusha and Amiyya, even until today, are completely separated.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, are they being separated because people are saying, oh, they're linguistically so different? I'm putting that in quotation marks. People might come at me in the comments. But, Because I've heard that argument. No, they're linguistically so different. They need to be separate. It begs the question of like, what's the actual reason why?
Yeah, well, there's the reason why, but there's also how can you maximize that overlap? So
Okay.
like with my son, if we had put in all those harakat, it would have like made the overlap a lot smaller.
Like a quarter.
We didn't test it, but it
Yeah.
would just be like, then you have to worry about usfur and asfur and bittikh and battikh and all that.
Yeah.
So, and if we had put in more phonetic changes to standardize it, then we probably could have expanded the overlap. So capitalizing on that phonetics is a great way to expand the overlap as much as possible. And I don't want to say necessarily ignoring Fusha phonetics per se or Fusha phonology, but finding the best way to bridge so that students can focus on one aspect of language learning at a time and slowly building.
Right.
Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
No, I think that was the question. You know, and then I guess how can we, you know, as teachers possibly look into, you know, using the Living Arabic Project as a resource or, I mean, I give it to my students as it's like on their resources page, you know, and especially for my students who are very, very interested in knowing as much as they can about all of the dialects, and they're really interested in also seeing like the historical linguistics, you know, that's happening there. They'll ask me about a certain word and I'll give them the word and I'll say, go plug it in, you know, to that at home, and see what comes up. But yeah, I mean, you had mentioned obviously the Living Arabic Project, but also on maybe working on developing some other apps or some other games. Like, would you like to talk about maybe some thoughts that you have for that could maybe serve K-8 or K-12 or?
Yeah, and like I said, my thoughts these days have been a lot around how to use that overlap and stuff like that. But for instance, I developed a game and I found like a print-on-demand place online for cards. It was a bit pricey, but since I didn't like print tons of it, to do like apples to apples.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to play that today.
Yeah,
Next time,
inshallah.
Next time, inshallah. Yeah.
I can give you a sample of the cards anyhow,
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah.
them. But I'd also like to work on areas where there's lack of overlap, actually, because for one thing, it's fun in a game, and I'll give some fun examples, but like it's also helps students start to learn skills about how to cope with that situation. Because sooner or later, if they are gonna travel in Arabic-speaking countries or interact with Arabs from other countries, they're gonna come across that situation. So what are the skills? There's, you know, one, obviously morphological and root rules, those can help a lot. But how to use a dictionary, how to change it phonetically so maybe it's something you recognize and things like that. There's a lot of skills that can be taught to deal with the lack of overlap as well. And going back to my son, I try to teach him those skills. I try to raise his phonetic awareness. You know, okay, in Egypt, you know, a lot of people are going to say ga instead of ja, you know. Start to recognize that and then see, you know, if you can recognize when different words when they say them based on context clues and so forth. Will you recognize gum for they came instead of iju? You know, things like that.
Oh, see, I thought like like gum,
No.
like get up
yeah.
from the cough, because
No,
cough can
the
also be
game,
yeah.
Yeah, it takes like, it's sometimes like when you're in a
right.
dialect you're
we're
familiar
Egyptian,
with.
yeah, like he said, we do use game more than jim sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, as you're hearing like Hossam talk about the project and working with his son, who's kind of in that age range, you know, a little bit like 4th, 5th,
Yes.
6th grade, like
Right.
how's that making you feel? Are questions coming up for you that you might have for Hossam?
Yeah, so our goal in my school, we're trying to have all the students earn the seal of bilingual literacy when they graduate. So we're trying to have, very similar to what he said, get them engaged in so many different ways where they do see that mix between the dialect and also the MSA. So I would say younger groups, we try to have a scenario, like a dialogue, where a student could come up and when a student could show like an MSA, a real life situation. He could speak in MSA and the other one speaks in dialect, and just get some ideas from a student, like a question and wonders. And that could go very smoothly with the younger age. older age, I would go more for like a presentation where they could even create about like a dialect and how dialects and MSA could be mixed together and presented to the whole class. Speaking about like apps that has like more phonics, an activity that I do with my kids when we are reading passages in a classroom, sometimes they take like a small portion. They're like, okay, annotate the words that you consider them as an MSA, and which one would you think it would be dialect? And literature, I think it definitely builds on their linguistic awareness and understand how the dialect works. Like what would be words, the rules, the sounds for the language, that it makes sense to them and how it's similar to the way that they speak, and understand like how, like you said, also one word could have a different meanings, or how the Arabic sentence could be written in different ways, like في فصل الشتاء تتساقط الأوراق, or I could say تتساقط الأوراق في فصل
فصل
الشتاء.
الشتاء
Right.
جملة اسمية وجملة
Right.
فعلية. Yeah.
So they could understand more of this. Definitely, it's a great exercise for that metalinguistic. And yeah, so I also think my kids, they love the most when we're playing games like which dialect is this? Let's do more like a word detectives. Let's do more like, is there another way that you could say that? Or
Yeah.
which dialect do you think this is from? So there are so many different games, speaking about games, that gets the kids very excited. And definitely the real life scenario. I think like it was so hilarious. I did it like I believe 2 years ago. I had one of my students came up, and it's kind of like he acted. He'd go into the hotel, and then he realized he made a booking for a room, and now the receptionist telling you, oh, I'm so sorry, nobody have called to make that, booking for you. So what you will do, how you're gonna respond to the receptionist. And it was super funny, like how you get them into the situation and see how they will respond using dialects, and maybe again like a transition or guide them to MSA. Another game that we like to do is more game. I believe it's called, oh my goodness. Oh, story building game.
Oh,
my
story
goodness.
building.
Would that be possible?
I
don't
was
know
like,
what it
is this Mad Libs? Have you ever played Mad Libs? Have you heard of this?
No, I did not.
It's where I remember a French teacher doing this, but it's where you have, a base of a story that's written, but there's blanks.
Right.
And
Yes.
in the blanks, under the blanks, it might be written like noun, verb, adjective,
Yes.
adverb. And so you kind of go around and you say, Hossam, give me an adverb. Christeen, give me a noun. And then it just ends up becoming like a qissa, qissa مضحكة, like a very silly story.
Yes.
Because they're really funny adverbs and really funny verbs.
Yeah.
But I think that can kind of build the awareness.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say more like at the adolescent age, I think they are more into dialect more than MSA. However, their education and their linguistic awareness is definitely higher as they're more exposed to listening to MSA in class, whether it's in the four modalities, but the social interaction, it becomes very dominant during that period of time. So, and where they are using basically dialect with their peers. But I do like the fact how they have this identity formation during that age. So sometimes they're overlapping. They want to speak in their home dialect because this is culture and when they're from, and they want to show that this is my dialect. Like, how once the dialect spells out, they'll be like, oh, so you're from Yemen or from, Lebanon. So yeah, they like to use that mix in both between them. So yeah.
To give those cultural cues.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, I keep hearing you talk about when your students are using the dialect, they're really feeling that extra close connection or relationship with their home culture, because I reflected on this the other day. A teacher who I had way back in the day, who I've been in touch with since, I had this teacher in 2010, but we've only ever spoken in Fusha together. And he's also, I say this in a loving manner, he's one of those like Syrian teachers who probably just mostly speaks Fusha at home. Like he just is a grammarian. He loves Fusha so much. And I saw him for the first time in over 10 years in person. And it was the first time I have ever spoken with him in Hamiyeh. And I realized the reason was because my language has grown and shifted so much that I am code switching so much more that it feels less natural for me to like pull back and fully extract the two. And I noticed he was starting to like use some Amia with me, and but what I noticed was there was a level of familiarity and comfort.
Yes.
I would say there was less professionalism, there, and there was kind of like less space. And it was the first time, and I've known this person for a long time, has written me recommendation letters, supported me as a student my entire career into becoming a teacher. Like, we're very close, but there was just this different element to our conversation. There was joking, there were just these sides that I had like never really seen of him, or he hadn't seen of me.
Right.
The minute we first spoke in dialect and Amiye. And when I think about that now, I don't want my students to miss out on having that, because if learning a language allows you to speak with another person, wouldn't we want that conversation to create a connection, and some humanization? Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what makes a language worth learning.
Yeah, to be able to express themselves, their feels, it's great to give them that space to express themselves and also feel like, it's so funny when you brought this story, because when I have my middle schoolers, the one that I taught like a couple of years ago, when they come and visit me, sometimes I'm like, it makes my heart very happy to hear them speaking in Arabic Fusha blend with their dialect, and they could now like speaks very natural, like they have that blend of each, which is, it makes me feel like they are definitely going to grow up and they have more linguistic awareness. They are aware when I'm switching, they are aware I'm using this word for this because I'm speaking about a certain type of food that I want to say it in Arabic Fusha, or I'm speaking, about like my favorite game that I do like to play with my friends, and they would say in an Arabic Fusha, and I feel like, okay, you could see that there are certain things that they do and say, it's very connected to them, to personality. So it's a great, because like I said, I feel like that age group with adolescents, they definitely have more exposure to media, more exposure to social interaction with their peers, more into like, yes, they are connected to the culture, but also they want to speak more like
professionally, academically.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. I am curious to ask you all the question because, we still don't live in a world where teaching Arabic in an integrated way is more than teaching Arabic, we'll just call it the more traditional way. There's still so many more classrooms, like, in the Arabic speaking world, definitely outside of the Arabic speaking world. What would you all, say to people who come to you and they say, okay, I respect what you're saying, but no, like, it just really needs to be separate. Like, how would you make your case for, no, actually, it's so much more important to integrate them, and here's why?
Well, I do think that both are very important. Like, I cannot separate them. Definitely, I need to have a mix of each, but I would say mostly for MSA to, like, I wouldn't say like spending 50-50, more like a 70% MSA and 30. If I'm introducing the topic first time, yes, it will be more like a 50-50, but towards the end, 70, 80, 90 until it gets less and it's like 100% MSA. Because when I'm assessing my student, I expect that I'm evaluating their understanding for both MSA and dialect. And because otherwise it would be unfair.
Right.
For them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I'm, a parent of students and I come to you and I say, my child is going to do their PhD in ancient Arabic literature, they only need Fusha, they do not need to learn dialect, what would your response to that be?
How they would be able to apply Fusha when they are in a real life situation.
Okay.
Or let's just try to have if your son or your daughter would like to travel abroad, maybe to visit, like you're going in Egypt or something, and they were trying
to do research for their PhD,
exactly.
maybe. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So how he'll be able to apply what he have learned and use it in that situation? Do you think he will feel that confident of himself? Yeah, and able to express himself like he has that enough knowledge and enough that linguistic awareness that he'll be able to do that on his own? Or do you think he more gonna need support in any way? And
Okay.
which yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great response. Hossam, do you have one?
Yeah. So just a second, what Christine said about the importance of both. I mean, you can't, they go together. I mean, they both, the Fusha provides a long history, you know, it helps. We have a lot of technical vocabulary, communicating across borders and so forth. But the dialects are also have their place, and they're very important socially for us, and they have a long history as well. And even for somebody, you gave the example of somebody going to study, you know, ancient scrolls or something like that. I don't know. So exactly that situation came up.
Oh, wait, really?
And somebody asked me, you know, hey, there's this word.
Like from an ancient scroll.
From
Someone
people
brought
from
you a
an
word.
Arabic papyrus, yeah.
Wow.
And they asked me this, and I was like, well, let me just check and see. And I didn't find the exact word, but I found the root, and I found a usage explaining it regarding sort of separating out water from the Nile. And the word was, the usage was probably from Syriac.
Tahleel.
Tahyiz.
Okay.
Tahyiz.
Wow, I was close.
You're close,
I was
right?
very
Yeah,
close.
Tahyiz. I mean, and it's not recorded in the Fusha dictionary.
Yeah.
And the interaction between Fusha and Ammiya is quite complex, actually, especially if you start to read modern media Arabic. You find a lot of words that, and they're not given definition, so you can assume the author thinks that they're Fusha enough to not be given a definition or explanation, but they're clearly from Ammiya. Like you will hear in, or read in Lebanese media, for instance, istazlam from zalami, like to make somebody your man or something like, you know,
Yeah, or
things
like your
that.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and it has a lot of different variations depending on context about what it means. But these words, and it poses a problem for me when I'm documenting different words and finding new ones, like where does this word actually go now? Right? It's in a Fusha context. The author's using it like Fusha. Should I put it in a Fusha dictionary? We don't have an authority for what actually is Fusha in that regard.
Oh, there isn't?
I mean, there's the Arab academies,
Okay.
you know, and the Egyptian, on that, you know, the Egyptian Academy has said what? Ista'bat is Fusha, you know, to think something is
Yes.
stupid, you know?
Yeah.
Istahmar is Fusha, according to them as well, I think. So, like, to think somebody is being a jerk, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have them, and then people mock them when they put out notices about this and say no, or they say yes. Dictionaries are very dependent on the author, actually. And in that regard, for instance, I believe the dictionary Lugha al-Arabiyya al-Mu'asara is written by an Egyptian author.
Yeah,
It does
the
include
modern.
Ista'bat. But if you look at some of the dictionaries written, for instance, by Ba'al-Baki, the Lebanese authors who did Al-Mawrid, they don't have Ista'bat in it. So, you know, it can be the author of the dictionary creates a bias in the result of this and what is considered Fusha and not. And in fact, a lot of dictionaries, I would say, are written by Arabs more from the East, if you will, Egypt and East. And this probably creates a bias against a lot of North African terms.
Yeah. No, I would definitely believe that. I mean, we know there's a lot of biases out there, you know, that just come through people saying, oh, like, you know, Moroccan Darija is hard. You know, okay, what do you actually mean by that? You know?
Or another actually key example, every single Arabic dictionary I own, and I own a lot of dictionaries, was written by a man.
Okay.
And when I watched a bunch of Levantine women cooking, there were so many words that just were not in dictionaries. So it becomes like an interesting study. What's happening to women's language? You know, or kids' songs. Kids, again, they're not out there writing dictionaries. What happens to their songs and the words that are used in it? Some of which are very old.
Right. Well, and it makes me wonder, okay, well, if we are only relying on Fusha dictionaries to develop these historical curricula, what language is left out of that? because, it wasn't a woman, or it wasn't, a person from this part of the country, or, it wasn't like younger generation, who had their words and their language accounted for in the dictionary as well. And if you're studying from that and then you're traveling to that part of the world, you're connecting with all kinds of people. You're not just connecting with like educated men who may have been the writers of these dictionaries. And so then all of a sudden you're lacking that language that is the piece that would allow you to connect with all the different people of that population. Yeah.
So,
I do want to ask you all this question because as a teacher, I'm constantly thinking about curricula and curricula design. Do you all think that, let's just limit it to the United States for now, because I know that we have been the part of the world for teaching Arabic that has really begun to push forward this integrative or integrated, approach to teaching Arabic, like, multiglossia, multi-dialectal in class. Do you all think that that is the future of teaching Arabic as a second language? Do you think more books will come out like that? What do you see for the future of teaching and learning Arabic?
well, I see the books we have in a classroom are mostly like dialects, though, more than Fusha.
Okay.
I would say like we had some are Egyptian dialects, some are more Syriac dialect. Yeah, and I don't think that I came across a book that it's 100% Fusha. But we are trying to push it, like I said, as much as possible. I do think that we, as teacher, we have a lot of work that we have to do in our hands. We have a big load. We are the one who's basically creating those assessments that that does evaluate and measure our students in both in dialect and also Fusha. We are the one who are trying our best to create and collect the different resources that also, whether it's songs, videotapes, or it could be like different worksheets that also kind of like helps the student to make that transition easily for them between dialect to go into Fusha. We even use the AI tools now that allows the student to see like how the translation is done between dialects and Fusha, or how creating different exercises, learning the language. So there are so many ways that we could do to improve what is kind of like to guide our students and to help them to get to MSA, but there are a lot of things that we have to do in our hands to get to that level.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. And it feels like a really big responsibility. I mean, I
Yes.
think when we know the value of the dialects, right? It's not just what can you do with a dialect, it's how are you forming your identity as an Arabic speaker, whether or not you're native, heritage, or non-native. Because when you show up and you speak a language and you build a relationship with someone in that language, there's some part of your identity that's coming into that. So it feels like more than just an academic responsibility.
Yeah.
It also feels like kind of a human responsibility to do it in a way that is respectful of, the vastness and
Yeah.
the diversity of the Arabic speaking
Yeah,
world.
we are the one who's kind of like curriculum develop what is
Yeah.
happening in we not rewriting the curriculum, but we are modifying. Like if it's a math lesson, like I said before, we are modifying so much in our math lessons. Same, it's happening for the Arabic language lessons that we do in class. We are trying to create, modify it, differentiate it, make sure that it meets all my students' needs before we are presenting the work, and it's 100% that I feel like confident about, and it's definitely going to lead my students to proficiency.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of load in our hands for us. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it. That's
Okay.
it. Hussam, what do you think about the future of how we will continue to and develop the teaching and learning of Arabic?
Well, I think I have to say, in a lot of ways, I have seen a lot of progress here in the U.S., especially since I was a kid. Although there's still a lot of holdouts, if you will, against that change. And part of that, I think, has to do, we haven't talked about it, but teacher training. I mean, Christeen sounds amazing. And honestly, listening to her reminds me, recently I heard a story, I think on NPR, about how in Alabama they've managed to improve their math scores despite how a lot of the country has backtracked during COVID and so forth, and still hasn't recovered from that. And they did it by, focusing really hard, reviewing all the textbooks, checking the numbers, quantitative approaches to measuring different approaches. Is this working? Is this not working? Of course, they have a lot of money to do that. There's a lot of money for math education in that regard. I wish there was that kind of money for Arabic education. Can we test different approaches? Christeen and I have described different approaches just now. I mean, I'm sure we'd agree on a lot of points if we talked in more detail, but there would also be some points of differentiation. Can we test those? What is the optimal approach in different cases? And I say different cases because it really would depend on the makeup of the classroom. I think AI is key because it can help us customize education at a more rapid rate, maybe even sometimes from classroom to classroom if that's what's needed, depending on who the teacher is, what are the makeup of the students, their backgrounds, and so forth. But I think we do need, like I said, it's going in the right direction, but more comprehensive assessment tools, the way she mentioned, would be amazing. One school mentioned to me, they're like, we've been organizing our students into different levels, but then we noticed that like the students never move from one level to the other. So like, why does that happen? And I'm like, well, it's because implicitly you're organizing them based on their background. And the way you teach them isn't going to change their background. But that's okay. You just have to organize each class, if you're going to do it that way, to take advantage of that specific set of backgrounds that are in it.
Right? Use it as an asset instead of...
If your advanced class was really a bunch of heritage speakers who spoke, they speak Arabic at home, lean into that and take advantage of it. If your beginner class was people who had no background in Arabic, fine, they're going to have a different approach in that case. But we need to be explicitly acknowledging these aspects of students' backgrounds and finding ways to really take advantage of it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I add on? Definitely for family involvement, because speaking about elementary and middle school, I feel we still need to involve our families into the classroom and maybe even invite them to the class and have them showcase how to speak beautifully, like between the MSA and dialect, and maybe support us in a way if the parents, maybe one if the parents do speak Arabic, they could be supporting their kids at home in so many ways. So definitely that will help us as teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Creating that community involvement piece. And I mean, I think I definitely agree with you, Hossam, that it will be classroom to classroom dependent, on the makeup. I mean, all three of us have spoken about contexts that are, it's like a mixed group of students who are coming with different things to the table. And I know the Chinese program at our school and some other languages have also done this. They have created a heritage learner track and a non-native speaker track. And at some point they merge back together, but they're kind of like addressing the needs of those students separately and then coming back together, which I don't necessarily like agree with that. But, I think different people are trying to address it in different ways. And to your point about the assessment piece, that's key. There are teachers. I mean, I think Christeen and I share this. We're always creating. It's just when we talk about ideas, it's what about this idea and then this one and you take that and I'll take that and then we'll make this new idea. We love creating. The hard part of that is not creating and implementing. It's then actually assessing how is it impacting learners, because we're seeing the impact, but being able to measure the impact and then use that to very precisely develop tools and curricula, that is what's going to leave that lasting impact, on the Arabic language teaching world as a whole.
Yeah. And it changes. How you measure that could also vary by your goals and stuff. I mean, I measure my son's progress of like, okay, when we play a video game together, does he say everything in Arabic? Does he manage to translate all those weird terms in the video game into something in Arabic or something like that?
Yeah.
what does he call, how does he make up names for the bad guys and things like that? Abu Fitr or something, I don't know, for a Goomba. So, yeah, I mean, I think I would like to see more of that. I know assessment is hard, and I know teachers work really, really hard. My mom was a teacher. I know she worked really hard and just to stay caught up, just to get the materials and everything ready. And for me, I'm outside of the classroom. I made the apples to apples game. I have some other ideas for games that I want to work on. But I don't necessarily have the reach to do anything with it.
Yeah. Well, we hope to see more of your games. I actually, because we had been, talking about the games and game creation, created my first ever connections, like the New York Times game, also not a plug for the New York Times, but the New York Times game in Arabic. And I made it for my first year students because we had been studying jadar and wazn, and you're already having to see the patterns and the connection when you're studying the roots and the forms. But when I would just throw words up on the board and say, oh, can you find which words are connected? They were having difficulty with it. But then I would see them playing connections in English on their phones before a class would start. And so as soon as I put it into the game format, they were like, oh yeah, let's do this, And as soon as a group of them would get a connection, they'd raise their hand. They're like, Anna connection, Ustaza, like, Rabte. And so then we would find it together and I would say, tell me the words. And they would have to say the words in Arabic and then tell me the connection. And we would kind of do that piece together. So I do think gamification and AI will come on another podcast episode, inshallah, very soon. We'll be digging into that even further. But thank you guys so much for being here. You all are both so inspiring, and I feel very lucky to be in this field working alongside of you guys for the future.
Sharafna. It was great. Thank you for having us.
Same. We'll be talking to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.